Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. I hope this proves to be helpful to all of you. I started yoga back in 2005, I guess it was. Studying under a man who's now 78 years old. Amazing guy. He's been teaching yoga now for 40 years. If you've heard of Lilius, who did yoga on PBS, he was working around the same time as her, started the Cincinnati Yoga Teachers Association with her and about 10 other people. So he's been in the thick of it for a long time. Amazing guy, and just like him, and I learned this from him, you're never done with learning about yoga because there's so many things you can do. Every time I go to a class, I learn something new from him, and I continue to go to his classes myself. What I wanted to do today, and with subsequent sessions of this, is give you some things, some tools, basically, that you can use to feel better. Because that's the bottom line for me with yoga. If you look at this book, you'll notice Roger is not, a model, a weightlifter or anything like that. He's got a punchy thing here. I do too. This is not about, becoming dancers or anything like that. This is about feeling good. Period. And with yoga, we recognize, come on in. You'll have a form to fill out, but I can keep talking. So with yoga, it's not about forming the poses perfectly, although I will tell you it is important to form the pose, but the reason you form all these different poses in yoga is to get a benefit out of the pose. And Roger and I typically, when we go out, we've gone around all around the city and some places down in the south, we've done a tour, and we'll do what's called Warrior Two, and we stand like this and stretch it out. And this is kind of like Warrior Twos. It's not exactly, because I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but I'll go like that. Roger's 78, and he'll go like this. And we'll ask the audience, who's getting the most out of that pose? And the answer is, both of us. Because if I did what Roger does, my body doesn't feel any stretch at all. If Roger went like me down to here, he would be hurting. Okay? So it's all about what works for you. So when we go around and talk, we talk about 3 core elements of yoga. The first is breathing. A lot of people do stretches before they run, and before they do this, and before they do that. Well, if you're just doing stretches and you're not breathing, can you imagine going like this and holding your breath? What would happen if you hold your breath? This muscle would start cramping up. It's not getting any oxygen, right? And it would hurt over time, maybe even a short period of time. The whole point of breathing deeply while you're doing stretches is that you're actually taking in air, and that air is going into your lungs, and the lungs have all those capillaries, and they pass all that oxygen through and into those muscles. And that oxygen gets to every cell and every muscle that you're stretching. In the meantime, those muscles are passing back all the CO2 and other contaminants, whatever waste can go pack through the blood system and then out your lungs, and you breathe it out. So can you imagine if you're taking shallow breaths and you're doing all this stretching, what's happening? You're filling up your lungs with all that waste product and you're not getting it out, and you're not taking enough oxygen. So breathing is extremely important when you're doing stretching. You can call it yoga, you can call it whatever you want, but if you're stretching, please breathe deeply, because you're feeding your body something that's vital to it. Secondly, so there's breathing. Secondly is alignment. Now, if you go to yoga classes with anybody, they'll be really, most teachers are very insistent on trying to get the poses right. Roger, when I took classes, he was like doing the poses himself. He never even came out and looked at us. And I thought, what's going on here? I thought, well, okay. But what he did was, over time, I caught on by watching him, watching other people in class on how to do pose, and he wasn't so insistent. The first time I went to yoga class many years ago, before Roger, a guy didn't like the way I was doing the pose, and he pushed me into it, and it hurt. That's why Roger doesn't do that. You make your own adjustments, because the third element in yoga is awareness. How many of you people know how I feel inside today? None of you, right? Even if you knew me intimately, like live with me every day, you wouldn't know how I feel inside. And I can't know how you feel. So when you go to any yoga class, including my yoga class, anything that I teach you, and I say, do this now, if you don't feel right about it, you don't do it. Because you know how your body feels. If I do a certain stretch, if I go like this, okay, I can go like that. Some of you might hurt yourself doing that. You can hurt yourself doing yoga. And a lot of Americans hurt themselves doing yoga because they're so competitive. So the whole key to awareness is, you're learning how to be aware of your body and knowing what your limitations are and what your body's like and what pose and how far you go in a pose to make it work for you. So does all that make sense?